President Thomas Jefferson, in an address to the Danbury Baptists, please don't miss this, because I get people that call into my show sometimes and they'll say, why do I hear this? There is no separation of church and state. Yes, there is. Listen to what Thomas Jefferson said. The First Amendment has created a wall of separation between church and state, but that wall is a one-directional wall. It keeps the government from running the church, but it makes sure that Christian principles will always be in government. Amen. John Adams. We have no government armed with power capable of contending with human passions, unbridled by morality and religion. Avarice, ambition, revenge, or gallantry would break the strongest chords of our Constitution. Our Constitution is designed only for a moral and religious people. It is wholly inadequate for any other. George Washington, ever heard of it? Do not let anyone claim tribute of American patriotism if they even attempt to remove religion from politics. Amen. These guys couldn't run for office today. Am I right? Yeah, don't even attempt to remove religion from politics. You ever tried to get religion back into politics? Despite modern politicians, despite the contemporary media, my apologies, despite history revisionists, we were founded on the freedom of worship of God. And it was costly. Founding this country and putting together the Constitution that you were trying to hold today was costly. 7,200 Americans killed in battle after the independence was signed. 8,200 wounded. 10,000 died from disease and exposure. 6,500 died in prison after being captured. 1,400 soldiers to this day still listed as missing in action. And what about the people that signed the Constitution? Did they pay a price? Because it's one thing to make a bold declaration. It's one thing for us to come together today and go, yeah, but then to go out and pay the price? That's a little tough. Yeah, they paid the price. After hearing briefly of the faith and the courage of the Founding Fathers, and some of the things that we'll hear here today, and the incredible allegiance that they held, we're going to have the same opportunity today. Obviously not to birth a new country and to start it on its incredible path of becoming the greatest example of a democratic republic that the world has ever known. But we will have the opportunity today, nonetheless, to latch onto the hope of those men and their truth of their commitment, and to decide for all of us that our future will be greater the more we determine to have the same heartbeat that they had. I'd like to say a word. He's not here. He might hear some of this. To the President of the United States and to those who serve with him in the Senate and the House. You folks might call it cap and trade, cap and tax, corporate bailouts. Call it whatever you want. Call it a dream act, although it's more of a nightmare. When you swing open the doors of citizenship the way you're trying to, and you bypass not only Ellis Island, but you also bypass the Constitution, and you diminish the legacy of legal immigrants like my father who came from Ireland, and you dilute the citizenship of all of us. When you enter into a START treaty, where all the risks and the commitments seem to flow from our side of the ocean, while other nations make demands, and then they have all the loopholes built in so they can enter in and out of the agreement anytime it suits them. When you say that based on the recent tragic events in Tucson, that it's obviously time to take away more of the defensive freedoms of all God-fearing lovers of the Second Amendment, which, by the way, is in the Constitution. When you can function as if the United Nations and its charter is perhaps more relevant than our own Constitution, and you must think that sometimes because, sir, Mr. President, the way you've traveled around the world and apologized for us. When you can call me a Tea Partier and a Bible thumper, then go right ahead. When you make fun of us for clutching to our God and our guns, go ahead. You, sir, are mortgaging the future dream of America, our future, my children's future, and their children's future. You're mortgaging the very survival of our nation, and we're not going to allow it anymore. Now, some great political minds, like Janine Garofalo, would say that the reason that we're here is because we're racist. Nice can, brother. long as we're willing to have open discussions with and about those that we've elected and appointed to service, that we get together at times like this to decide where we stand as a nation and how it is we're going to hold those accountable to service. I heard on WOWO this morning as I was driving down, WOWO, that's News Talk 1190 WOWO. I'm on every afternoon from 3 to 6. I don't know if I brought that up earlier. I was listening to WOWO on the way down, talking about Janet Napolitano. Now, please. How you can take the stand that she takes on the border and be the former governor of Arizona, I guarantee you, when she retires, she doesn't move to Arizona. Jan Napolitano said the most dangerous people in America. Now, this is a woman in charge of Homeland Security. Okay, you remember planes and buildings and shoe bombers and almost blowing up jets and SUVs? You remember Fort Hood? You remember all this? She said the most dangerous people in America today are those who listen to talk radio. Really?
I understand Obama listens to it.
In all these discussions that we have with and about the people that serve us, we need to realize the stand of not just our president, but of those who serve us in the House, and as we're here today to think of those who represent us in the Senate. Somebody who has sided with the president on each of those items that I mentioned earlier. But as we examine and we test and we question the stands of all who serve us, we come to realize one who has tried to serve us and now wants to serve us again, who not only agrees with the president and others first, but also chooses to not agree with us. And who states, as his staffer stated to a caller from my show just 2 weeks ago, that, quote, the senator's agenda is often different from that of his constituents, and they just need to realize that and accept it. A, I realize it. B, I don't accept it. C, I'm going to change it. Today is about the what. What kind of person it is that we want. Because if a ball team's getting ready for the draft for next year, I'm already thinking next year the Colts are out. The NFL season's over. I'm not sure if you guys realize that. But
Go Bears.
Losers.
Go Pittsburgh.
Let's just keep going through it, shall we? All right. When a team gets together for their draft, far before they know the who, they know the what. They know what position they need to fill. And then when they go for that position, Peyton Manning was the first draft pick for the Colts, although they said he wasn't the number one pick in the draft. And the Colts management looked and said, for exactly what we want to make our team work, we think by composition of a person, by the character of the man, by the types of qualities and abilities that he brings, we think Peyton Manning best suits the bill for us. Is there anybody in the room that would ever question that they made the right decision several years ago? Right?
Right.
We need to do the same thing.
Right.
We'll get around to the who. As I stand here today, as God is my witness, I have no idea who the who is. I've heard names bandied about. What about this and what about that one? That day will come. Today is deciding the what. What does our next representative need to look like? What does their stand on the Constitution need to be? What do their hopes and dreams for Indiana, for my daughters and their daughters and their daughters? What does that look like? I need to settle that. Then I'll find the who that fits the bill. And if the who doesn't fit that bill, then that's not my who. One decision we can arrive at very quickly, I think, is that after many years of service, often distinguished in using his voice for the people of Indianapolis as he did as mayor, and in the beginning, in the past, for the people of Indiana as senator, in an age when we, the people of the heartland, see the need to return, not just in word, but in reality, to the core of the spirit of America, and to place again in our hearts and in our minds the Constitution of the United States back in its proper place, it's now time, in my view, to thank Senator Lugar for the service of the past, but in respecting his service, to ask him to respect us, to realize that after 6 terms of service in the Senate, We, the people, realize it's more important now for us to cling to our God and to our Constitution, but not to a senator who has in his own mind outgrown the need of accountability to his constituents. The time has come.